must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us. This is Diaspora Dispatches, where we get to look at the news making headlines across the continent of Africa. And I do have a couple of those news for you. And my name is Miriam Goto, and good morning, good evening, depending on where you're tuned in. And we shall start with Mozambique, and the Mozambican government says it needs more than $114 million for the social economic reconstruction of the district town of Palma in northern Cabo Delgado, a province recently vandalized by Islamist terrorists. The Minister of State Administration and Public Service, Anna Komwana, described the situation in Palma as extremely difficult, shocking and violent. She said infrastructure and financial resources had been deployed in the attack. Mrs. Komwana said the government has to prepare to rebuild the town, but she did not say how the funds will be raised. And then we go to Somalia, where Somalia opposition leaders and the regional states of Juba and Puntland, as well as the country's Senate, have rejected Parliament's decision to extend the presidential term by 2 years of President Farmajo. The Somali lower house of Parliament on Monday overwhelmingly extended President Mohamed Farmajo's term in office and that of the federal parliament by 2 years. Jubaland state government said parliament's move was a setback to rebuilding the country's governance. A spokesperson for Puntland's President Said Abdullahi Deni tweeted that it was an illegal move by the out-of-mandate lower house. Somalia's Senate's first deputy speaker Abshir Ahmed questioned the power by the lower house to take such a controversial decision without the Senate's approval. In a tweet, a former Somali Prime Minister Hassan Ali Haye said the president will solely be held responsible for what happens today or will happen. President Farmajo praised the decision and called on the Somali people to take advantage of the opportunity and participate in the country's political process. And it's just the other day we were having this conversation, and I think there's a question I posed to my panelist during a show I was having with a couple of panelists with me about President Farmajo's commitment to actually having an election there in Somalia. Remember, Somalia was supposed to have had its election on the 8th of February this year, but that time lapsed and there's not been an agreement between the federal state and the federal governments there, the national government led by President Farmajo and the rest of the states, especially Jubaland and Puntland. There's been a problem, and of course the Somaliland. So there you go. Now the lower house has voted to extend Farmajo's term by 2 years. Okay, I think that is a conversation that requires a broader panel. So let's just carry on and go to Ethiopia. And Ethiopia has said that it has addressed all the concerns Sudan had raised regarding its Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam or the Nile River as talks regarding its operation collapsed. The ministry questioned why Sudan should complain about the dam after lauding it for years. Sudan and Egypt have increasingly been making similar statements concerning the dam, that they see it as a threat to their share of the Nile River waters. The ministry also accused Egypt of failing to recognize Ethiopia's generosity and understanding. Following the failure of the latest negotiations this month, Egyptian and Sudanese officials have heightened rhetoric against Ethiopia's intention to fill the dam next July. Years of tripartite negotiations have failed to solve the dispute over the construction of the dam, with which Egypt and Sudan fear will reduce their share of the Nile waters. And then we go to Chad, and the Chadian army has said rebels attacked an area near the northern border on Sunday, the day of the country's presidential election. The army said on Monday that steps had been taken to neutralize the insurrection at Zorke, about 1,000 kilometers north of the capital N'Djamena. A political military coup, the Front for Change and Concord in Chad, founded by dissident army officers in 2016, claimed responsibility for the attack, the Reuters news agency has reported. It reported that the group, which blamed President Idris Deby for repression over the elections, had disputed the government's portrayal of the attack. President Deby is expected to extend his 30-year rule in the election, whose results have not yet been announced. We go to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the DRC's Prime Minister on Monday announced a new cabinet in a move that consolidates President Felix Tshisekedi's control in government. The new government of the Sacred Union Coalition has 57 members, including 14 women, with only 10 from the previous cabinet being reappointed. The Sacred Union is President Tshisekedi's new coalition announced on the 6th of December after breaking his collaboration with former President Joseph Kabila. The AFP news agency says figures from the anti-Kabila opposition have been named to key posts, including Environment Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Eva Bazaiba of the opposition party Movement for the Liberation of the Congo. Christopher Lutundula, the new foreign minister, is close to former Katanga Governor Moise Katumbi, who attempted to challenge Mr. Kabila in the past presidential election. AFP notes the former president still retained considerable power even after stepping down following the 2018 elections, as his coalition had won the majority of parliamentary seats in what was widely seen as a flawed election. In December, President Tshisekedi moved to end the coalition with Mr. Kabila and forced the resignation of Prime Minister by persuading scores of MPs to defect. And then we go to Nigeria. Nigeria's Communications Minister Issa Bantami has dismissed reports that linked him to Boko Haram. The minister criticized media outlets that published the report. Mr. Bantami already written to the publication that first wrote the story. He said in all other major outlets that published the story would meet his lawyers in court. So this is a minister in the government of retired Major President Buhari is being accused of having links with Al-Shabaab. The fact that that is even an idea that will be floated there is interesting, to say the least, over a serving cabinet minister. All right, so we go to, but of course he's refuting these claims and he's saying that he will sue all the media outlets that have carried out this story. Okay, so he's saying these are allegations and very dire allegations, and he's not very happy about it. So anyway, we go to Djibouti, and at least 34 people have drowned after a boat capsized off the coast of Djibouti. The International Organization for Migration, IOM, has said the boat, operated by people smugglers, was carrying about 60 migrants escaping conflict in Yemen who were on their way to Djibouti, according to IOM. The organization has expressed concern over tens of thousands of young African migrants making the dangerous journey from the Horn of Africa to the Gulf states in search of work. And then we go to Ghana, and Twitter announced on Monday the recruitment of a team of 11 people in Ghana with the intention of making the West African country its headquarters for the continent. Twitter said its new team would start by working remotely while exploring the possibility of opening an office in Ghana in the future. The company explained its choice by the freedoms of expression and internet access offered by Ghana, as well as the recent attribution to its capital, Accra, of the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Facebook already has several offices in Africa, including Nigeria, the most populous country on the continent in West Africa. And then we head over to Benin, and the early results of the first round of Benin's presidential election are expected today, with President Patrice Talon set to win a second five-year term amid accusations of election fraud. Opposition leaders in the West African nation had called for a boycott of the Sunday's election, accusing Talon of pushing through election laws which disqualified his rivals or forcing them to leave the country. Talon's supporters deny the claim of election fraud, citing an election official's comment that the vote was mostly peaceful, with no major incidents despite some deadly clashes leading up to the election. Still, not all voters made it to the polls. Emmanuel Tiando, the president of the country's electoral commission, the Autonomous National Electoral Commission, or CHENA, has said voting could not take place in 16 of the country's 546 boroughs without an explanation. So you're going to tell, I think those are the polling stations, 16 of them, elections did not take place, and you, as the Electoral Commission of a country, you would not even bother to explain why that is so. Okay, I will not be surprised if that is opposition strongholds. I'm not sure, but you know what? I'll dig for more information. I'll bring you the news here tomorrow. So let's just go to South Sudan. And the European Union has expressed concerns over what it called unnecessary and disappropriate force, yes, used to suppress peaceful protest that took place last month at Mobile roundabout in Juba. On March 30th, some young people took to the streets to demonstrate against the killing of singer Trisha Chi and called for urgent reforms within the health sector and the traffic police. Some of the activists were briefly detained by the police but later released in evening hours. According to the EU, these arrests raised concerns about the constitutional rights of the South Sudanese to express their discontent peacefully and publicly. In a statement seen by iRadio, the EU said it was concerned by the force used to suppress the peaceful demonstrations. It stressed the importance of guaranteeing the right to freedom of expression and the right to peaceful assembly for every citizen, including creating the necessary space for civil society to operate. And still staying with South Sudan, President Salva Kiir has instructed the new appointed army chief to find out why soldiers are deserting the military camps. What? Like President Salva Kiir, the president of South Sudan, does not know, is acting clueless as to why soldiers are leaving the cantonment sites. Okay. So Santino Dengwall, who was the former SSPDF Deputy Chief of Defense Forces for Administration and Finance, took office on Monday, but several reports have already explained, which I read here every day, emanating from South Sudan. So these reports have already explained why soldiers are leaving the cantonment sites. The issues forcing soldiers to run away from the assembly sites have been attributed to lack of food, medication and shelter. So President Salva Kiir, please pay attention. Let's help you out here in case you don't know why your soldiers are the unified forces who have been undergoing training and are waiting to be unified and be deployed across the country. You're saying you don't know why they're leaving, and you're asking this new appointee to go and find out on a fact-finding mission as to why these soldiers are leaving. So these are the issues that these soldiers are running away from. The sites have been attributed to lack of food, medication and shelter, and some army commanders in the Equatorial region also say they subsist on mangoes after Juba failed to give them supplies. So they do not have food, President Salva Kiir. Others say there are no vehicles to transport sick soldiers to nearby health facilities. So according to 2018 peace deal, the peace parties are supposed to unify their forces under one command and transform it into a national army. It's been 2 years since the soldiers were assembled at training camps across the country. Their graduation has been postponed several times due to what the government described as a lack of funds, and yet President Salva Kiir there does not know why they're leaving the cantonment site. That is a level of... Okay, let's just head over to Uganda. And the United Nations human rights experts on Tuesday called on the Ugandan authorities to immediately stop a brutal crackdown on political opponents. There have been reports of alleged widespread kidnappings and murders of opposition supporters since January 14th elections, which the incumbent President Yoweri Museveni, who is 76 years old, won with over 58% of the votes against opposition leader Robert Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobi Wine, who garnered around 34.83% last month. Kyagulanyi was arrested again in the capital, Kampala, as he led members of parliament in a peaceful protest. And then we end with Zimbabwe. A group of Rwandan refugees living in Zimbabwe are refusing to be repatriated 5 years after their refugee status. After losing their refugee status, some 140 people who are living in the Tongogara refugee camp in eastern Zimbabwe had their refugee status revoked in 2013 by the United Nations after assurances given by the Rwandan government that their safety back home was guaranteed. However, the group protested the UN decision and their stay was extended by 2 years in 2015. Now the host country is insisting that it is time for them to return home. And that is the latest from the continent. So, James Bitoro, good afternoon. You're saying Salva Kiir is not serious. I'm telling you. I am telling you, Salva Kiir is, forget being serious with the peace agreement. President Salva Kiir is just not serious, period. How do you pretend as a head of state you don't know why the soldiers in South Sudan, if I'm here in Kenya and I can fully give a report why the soldiers there are fleeing those training sites, and I'm over here and I don't even receive intelligence report from the government of South Sudan, but somehow I do know what is happening in South Sudan. So now President Salva Kiir wants to pretend he does not know. In fact, if I quoted for you the exact words that he used, it's just ridiculous. He said, go find out why they are fleeing. He used very ridiculous words. I didn't get that, but it's quite ridiculous, yes, that he's now, having this person go and find out on a fact-finding mission. Go find out why these soldiers who are supposed to have, graduated 2 years ago, why they keep fleeing this cantonment sites. President Salva Kiir, you have to get serious sometimes, and now I don't know. So I don't know what this guy would come back later and say, because this reports that have been presented to the United Nations Security Council, every now and then the government of President Salva Kiir has gotten a hold of this report. So he really knows what's really happening there. But as you've said here before, and I'll keep repeating, there's no willingness in Salva. In fact, when you look at look at that attitude, he does not know. He's pretending he does not. He knows. He's pretending he does not know what is really happening there in these cantonment sites where these soldiers have been staying. And a lot of them have to even feed on mangoes and stuff for them to survive. They don't have food. They don't have medication when they're sick. In fact, was it a week ago, I was reading over 50 or thereabouts soldiers have died for the past couple of months from, very treatable illness there in these sites, because they don't have medication and there's no shelter. Basically, they don't even have the tents that they were given initially. They've all been tattered, and so they have to struggle. And it's, the living conditions there are pathetic. Salva Kiir, if you cannot hear anything else, that is the main reason. The living conditions there is it's very hard. They don't have the basic necessities to keep them going there in this camp. So if they don't tell you anything else, I'm telling you. All right. So I don't know what Santino and Deng Wall, this former SSPDF Deputy Chief of Defense Forces, will come back and tell you. But anyway, you've sent him to find out why why these soldiers are leaving the cantonment sites, and it's interesting. It's ridiculous, at the same time. Interesting and not in a good way. President Salva Kiir, no. So this story from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where now President of the DRC, Felix Tshisekedi, seems to have gotten a hold of his country. Remember when they had the elections? Was it in December 30th? Is it 30th or 31st, 2018? And at the end of the year, 2018, I remember we were covering those elections. And before then, the elections, the former president, Joseph Kabila, had postponed elections twice. Before the elections happened in 2018, December, they were supposed to have happened 2 years prior. But President Joseph Kabila kept postponing these elections until 2018, so they happened. So when they happened, the person who is said to have won this election actually is Martin Fayulu, who I think disappeared into oblivion. I don't hear of him anymore. I remember the Catholic Church said possibilities he won. France also, I think other countries, but you see President Joseph Kabila and the former and now the president, Felix Tshisekedi, went to a backroom talk, and they agreed that I think some certain allegations say that, were doctored to portray that President Felix Tshisekedi won the election. So be as it may, right, he went ahead and he won the elections, President Tshisekedi. But now the problem is former President Joseph Kabila still had a lot of say, because he had the leading numbers in Parliament, in Senate there. And if you have the leading numbers, the majority, that means you get to be part of the government, whether, the party leader is the president or not, but that party still has to contribute in terms of ministers and wards. So President Kabila side commanded about 56% of the coalition government there in the DRC. So it gave President Tshisekedi a very hard time, because the decisions that he needed to make, he could not make until it was approved, and he did not have majority. So it has been a long couple of years for him as the president of DRC. And so we see now that union refused to work. Remember, the leading party with the majority has to produce a prime minister. So the prime minister that Joseph Kabila, which his party has the majority, suggested, did not augur well with President Felix Tshisekedi. So it became a back and forth thing there for quite a while. Tshisekedi refused to appoint that guy. Kabila insisted, this is a person we're giving you. So he was really holding him at ransom for quite a while. So they finally agreed. I don't know if he changed the name of that, but I think he did, and so they agreed there. But it has been a very difficult working condition for President Felix Tshisekedi. So now he seems to have gotten a hold of his cabinet, as he has now seems to have consolidated the control in his government. Remember, before President Felix Tshisekedi, he was sworn in January 2019, I remember. And shortly after that, the father had died, the elder Tshisekedi had died in Belgium and had been there for 2 years. So the first order of office, and he could not bring his father back, because he was the opposition leader then, and he had fallen out with the government, Tshisekedi's father. So he flew. He was in Belgium. So when he died, he could not be brought back to the country. So he was being taken care of, the body. So after the son became the president 2 years later, he brought the father back to the country, and he offered him a presidential ceremony there. We were watching it live, and he was able to bury his father. I don't know how President Joseph Kabila felt then, because he had greatly fallen out with Tshisekedi's dad, Etienne. His name is Etienne, I think, Tshisekedi, or Tshisekedi Senior. And so it has been a sort of a cold blood, and a cold war between these two sides, with former president still commanding a lot of, when it comes to decision making, he used to dominate because of his numbers that he has. But you've seen there, now President Tshisekedi has been able to maneuver through, and the people who are loyal to Kabila, a lot of them have been removed and voted out. And so we see that now he has a cabinet that can hear him. Basically, people that can take orders from him. When you're a president and you don't have a majority, and whatever you say has to be vetted, and majority of the times you don't have it, you're just a lame president there. You're just a lame duck president. So Felix Tshisekedi was that for quite a while, but now we see that the new government of the Sacred Union Coalition has 57 members, including 14 women, with only 10 from the previous cabinet being reappointed. Now, the Sacred Union is President Tshisekedi's new coalition that was announced in December last year after breaking his collaboration with former President Joseph Kabila. The AFP news agency says figures from the anti-Kabila opposition have been named to key posts. So those who are not allies to Kabila have been named to key posts, including Environment Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Yves Bazaiba of the opposition party Movement for the Liberation of the Congo. And there you go. So perhaps now President Felix Tshisekedi, who is the current chair, by the way, of the African Union, will now be able to work in peace there. And I don't know if Joseph Kabila will let him, but at least now he has control of his cabinet and the support there. So this Nigeria's communication minister, being accused of working in cahoots with Boko Haram, he's now threatening to sue the media houses who have carried out this story. He's not very happy. His name is Issa Pantami. It's very interesting because the leadership there in Nigeria, a lot of even security people in key security positions in the country have been accused numerous times of, knowing a bit of getting involved with Boko Haram. So I'm not surprised, but he's saying these are just allegations that he's not happy about. And so he's looking to sue every one of those newspapers and perhaps TV stations that have run that story. And Somalia Somali opposition leaders and the regional states of Jubaland and Puntland, as well as the country's Senate, have rejected a parliament's decision to extend the presidential term for 2 years. President Farmajo did not want to leave office at all. That's why elections did not happen on 8th of February. And I think we've been talking about it here. And, we were just saying it as a by the way. And we were questioning, his willingness to actually hold an election there in Somalia. Immediately learned that he took the Somalia's Electoral Commission to go and be trained, being trained on how to conduct elections in Uganda. That was a joke of the century. That's what the government of Somalia did last year. Took its election officials to go to Uganda and get trained on how to conduct a free and fair election. Can you imagine? Okay, so nothing was going to happen there, and you've seen the disagreements between, the federal state and these are the regional states of especially Jubaland and Puntland, who have been at loggerheads with President Abdullahi Farmajo, and now his term was supposed to have ended on 8th of February, and if at all he was going to be voted in, then he'll start a new term. But the elections didn't happen, and now Parliament has voted to extend President Farmajo's term for another 2 years. It's interesting because that is the lower house that voted to do so. Somalia has not had a conventional election. So what do you call it? There's a name for it, I've forgotten, but they've not had an election where the people could actually go and vote their own leader and go a direct election. Yes, a direct election there. So usually theirs is quite different. Representatives are elected. They go to the lower house. So they're the ones who have the mandate to vote who's going to be president, and Senate also is involved. But now Senate is saying we were not involved in this decision. And Somali Senate First Deputy Speaker Abshir Ahmed questioned the power by the lower house to take such a controversial decision without the Senate's approval. In a tweet, a former Somalia Prime Minister Hassan Ali Harie said the president will solely be responsible for what happens today or will happen. So what are you telling us? Are we expecting to see more chaos in Somalia now? This guy, he was the Prime Minister of Somalia, and we talked about him here so much. Dr. David Matsanga does not have very kind words for him, and so he fell out with his boss. So now these are some of the policies they were implementing when he was working under President Farmajo, and now he's not very happy. That those seeds they planted, they finally are blooming. And Mr. Farmajo is there to stay another 2 years. We don't even know after those 2 years if elections will happen there. So listen, Mr. Hassan Ali, you just might have to eat your tomatoes there. But President Farmajo has praised the decision and called on the Somali people to take advantage of the opportunity and participate in the country's political process. Which political process, President Farmajo, are you talking about? The political process that Somali people were supposed to be part of this year was for them to be allowed to have a direct vote, which I think now, looking at things, you made that not possible, because I don't think you were ready to leave office, President Farmajo. So there you go. So you're asking them to take advantage of an opportunity when, after 2 years, you're not going anywhere. So you're telling the people of Somalia to take advantage of the opportunity and participate in the country's political process. Okay, I'm even confused. All right, very well. So let me end with this story from Ethiopia, where Ethiopia now is concerned about Sudan. These concerns that Sudan has raised regarding its Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on the Nile River as talks regarding its operation collapsed. And the ministry questioned why Sudan should complain about the dam after lauding it for years. And I think if you've been watching this show, I have said this before, Sudan did not have a problem with the Grand Renaissance Dam there that Ethiopia is building, the hydroelectric dam that Ethiopia is building that costed the country close to $5 billion. And then all of a sudden, it has been a task for the last 10 years that that dam has been under construction. And so Egypt said, we don't care how much you've used to, build that great investment. What we're asking you is for you not to fill that dam, which I thought, okay, that was ridiculous. There's no way you expect Ethiopia has invested that much money and then to boost its power supply in the country, and now you're telling it you can't fill that dam. And Ethiopia said, no, we will fill the dam during the long rain seasons, which I think from there starts in June. So when we have so much water, the Nile River is overflowing and flooding, because it does, especially in parts of Sudan, then only then are we going to fill this dam. And Egypt has been very adamant, has not been very happy with that. And, Sudan was sort of the third wheel in this, if I may, in this issue. Sudan was not very vocal because it's not really affected as much. But lately we've seen Sudan come out and be very vocal, and it seems to be taking side with Egypt. And so I know Sudan is under construction right now after the ousting of Omar al-Bashir. Sudan needs a lot of support, and there are key players who are there trying to help Sudan in the name of UAE, in the name of other countries, and we know their position when it comes to this dam. So I don't think Sudan's position, is of Sudan's. I think they're being pushed on behalf of certain quarters who want now Sudan to join Egypt, and so that they raise their concerns and perhaps put pressure so that Ethiopia can stop with the filling of the dam, which I've said here, Ethiopia will not stop. Last year, I think it refilled, now it's waiting for the long rains there. It will continue refilling that dam, okay, because that is a great investment, and so I don't know how they expect that to happen. And so I think this new voice that all of a sudden Sudan has found and has been criticizing Ethiopia over this dam, I think Sudan is not speaking on its behalf, because it's not really greatly affected. The country that I think is directly affected is Egypt, and it's saying that will affect its because Nile River is the sole supply of fresh water for Egypt, and so it's saying by Ethiopia having built this dam, it will affect the amount of water that it will be receiving. So Egypt has been adamant you can't fill that dam, and Sudan was the third wheel in this story, but now Sudan has come in and has joined Egypt, and so there's been talks that have been held time and they have continued to collapse, and so there seems to be no clear way. So now Egypt is raising questions as to why you have been very quiet over these 10 years. We've had these wrangles, but now all of a sudden, you're very vocal and you're speaking out, and it's not like you're going to be very affected. Your water supply will remain constant. It's not that Sudan is going to be greatly affected with this. So why is it that now, for you'd choose to be vocal about this matter? So Sudan and Egypt have increasingly been making similar statements concerning the dam that they see as a threat to their share of the Nile River waters. As I said there, Egypt might be affected to some extent, but Sudan not too much. And the ministry also accused Egypt of failing to recognize Ethiopia's generosity and understanding. So that is Ethiopia talking. Following the failure of the latest negotiations this month, Egypt and Sudanese officials have heightened rhetoric against Ethiopia's intention to fill the dam next July. So between June and July, when they have heavy rains. So Ethiopia is being very considerate. They're saying, we will not try to refill in April or January or February or March or May, for that case, but let's just wait when there's heavy rains. That is the time we will continue with the refilling of the dam, which I think is quite considerate on Ethiopia's part. And so years of tripartite negotiations have failed to solve the dispute over the construction of the dam, which Egypt and Sudan fear will reduce their share of the Nile waters. And so the saga continues, and I will be here to let you know how that keeps unfolding, all right, if at all they will come to an agreement on how to share this great resource in this region. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. I'm Miriam Ogotu. Enjoy the rest of your day.
peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.